Hey everyone, and welcome to the Taros podcast. Today I am so excited to have my next guest on. Not only one of my very, very good friends, but somebody I deeply admire. Ben Brown is an international educator. He's been to 40 countries, and also his book and online education is also in another 100 countries. Today, we are going to discuss what it takes to have a sharp mindset to be on top, and equally how he's about to smash the US. We've had the pleasure of having Ben in the Taros Academy as our very, very first educator over the last few days. We've had the most amazing 2 days. He's been with us yesterday for a look and learn where we had over 30 people. And then today we've done a hands-on course. So without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Ben Brown onto the Taros podcast. Ben, thank you so much for agreeing to come onto my podcast and being my first guest. And do you know what? It's just so amazing to see you back in the UAE. Do you know, I was thinking earlier, how many times have you been over now? How many times have you visited us?
Oh, firstly, Tara, I'm so humbled to be your first guest. And it's amazing to be here in your own podcast studio.
Thank you.
It's funny you mention it. I was thinking myself the other day, I think we're coming up to 8 times now. This is the 8th visit in the UAE.
Yeah.
And I love it more each time I come.
Yeah. And how has the heat been this time? Because I know you're a fan of the heat.
Oh my goodness me. As long as the air conditioning is always on, I'm fine. And I'm really selfish with air conditioning. We know this. We have audience members wrapped up warm with blankets on and I'm still perspiring. But I'm coping as long as I'm indoors and the aircon's on full hammer. Yeah. I'm fine.
Yeah. I was thinking, because you came to me back in Abu Dhabi, and I think I just opened my second salon. And I think, you all of a sudden you just seemed to boom, didn't you? It was like, how long have you been an educator full time?
Well, I think the first thing was I was a salon owner.
Yeah.
And so I had this great consumer perspective on education. And I was retraining myself before I actually started to train other people. So my first student was myself. And when I got myself to a certain level, I wanted to, share what I'd learned to see if I really understood it. Mm-hmm. I think if you can explain it simply, then you do understand it.
Yeah.
From 2017, I've been an educator. And from 2018, I've been full-time education.
Wow.
Which means we launched the online education in 2018, which took a lot of time because we have to film, we have to edit, and do all the things to make sure the videos are consumer related, but also quite polished.
Yeah. I mean, Ben, when we talk about this online education, also you're very, very humble. I mean, your online education, you have not just that, you have your book. And I believe you've taught in how many countries across the world?
Yeah, I've been to over 40 now.
Yeah,
I mean,
amazing.
I'm saying it out loud. I am very proud.
Yeah.
And it makes you, if anything, it makes you work harder because you want to deserve those opportunities. So you never take it lightly. You think, oh my goodness, how am I going to top it? And so you keep going back to the lab, so to speak, and constantly trying to water your own enthusiasm for the job we do and the tasks that we must carry out.
Massively, Ben. And for me, not only are you a very dear friend, you're somebody I really, really admire, because what you've achieved in such a small space of time and alone, you're not attached to, you are working now with Alpha Path now, but the success that you've had over these last few years has purely come from everything that you put into it. I mean, your book and your online education platform are in over 100 countries?
Over 100 countries. Yeah, books sold in over 100 and the online we have subscribers from over 100. So again, I mean, it does take my breath a little bit out of me because I dreamt of doing this, to be honest with you. And the fact that we're being interviewed in this amazing academy in Dubai and we've just had a great session, it just totally, gives me a layer of gratitude because, like I say, I really love the idea of teaching people and teaching them to the standard I'm able to now is something that I've worked towards, but never had to happen.
Yeah.
So the fact that it has, I'm incredibly grateful to anyone that's ever worked with me and will work with me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Ben, do you know what I mean? This is the 8th time that you've come out to us and we've worked a lot together over the years, but this is the thing. Every year you turn up with something different.
Yeah.
You know, you're always adding to you know, to the cup, so to say.
Yeah.
You know, not in terms of like your online education, but you know, how you show up when you're educating, your energy and the stuff that you bring. You can really see that you're putting so much into this sort of growth of it. So that's amazing to see.
I think it's important to always move the conversation on. And I think before you try and master anything, you have to be an enthusiast. So whatever subject you're trying to teach or whatever you're trying to be part of, I think the vital thing is that you're massively enthusiastic and passionate about it before you pursue the knowledge and education of it. So being a huge enthusiast to learning about the haircut, that always helps me diversify my approach to delivering the content, you see. So whether that's online or whether that's the printed book, you know, I'm always searching for something that I would buy. So I think with any product you're doing, a salon, an academy, like you would come here to learn, you know, and so whatever you're selling, your customer has to be you first. So when I wrote my book, I wrote that for me. I wrote that for the person I was when I retrained. My online education was for me as well. Now, obviously, I think the one thing that can't be copied, Tara, is authenticity. So, you know, as long as, you know, your work is authentic to you and you're credible to yourself, you'll always be relevant. And I think that being relevant to other people is not what I search for. I aim to be credible to me first before anyone else. So when I step into any room and teach them, I feel full of strength because I'm credible to me and I'm responsible for my behavior. So I walk in there with a full heart and I'm ready to teach them, to share with them. And like I say, that's the biggest advice for any educator is you should be writing a course that you would go on for you. Write it for yourself first before anybody else.
And do you know what? I totally agree with that. You know, the whole idea behind this academy space here that we have is completely surrounded and based on that. It was like as a business owner and as a hairdresser, all the things that I've been through over the last few years, building a business and the amount of money I've invested into education. It was like, why don't we create a space where we can cover all these things for people? So I totally get that. But you said something there about authenticity. So for me, I totally agree with that. But that's not easy to, you know, that's not easy. That's a mindset thing, I believe, you know, and I think this is where a lot of people struggle because people are afraid to be authentic, you know, they're afraid to sort of step out from the crowd and do something different because, again, there's a lot of stuff with shaming, which isn't great. But again, equally, you know, people are afraid of this. So how do you manage that? And how do you
really
evolve from that?
It's a really good question. I think the first thing you've got to do is to focus on what things do you see as authentic, firstly. So I love the idea of a precision haircutter. So when I think about a beautiful haircut, I see someone cutting a perfect graduated bob. So I see that as something that I search for in myself. So I built my brand around things that set a light under me. But being nervous about it is, I think you've really got to go in. Don't be tepid. Don't be nervous about the reaction. You're going to get a bad reaction, and you can't have light without shade, I suppose. So for every positive comment that I get, I probably would get a negative one. But as Seth Godin says, don't read the comments. You know, and I think that's to be authentic to yourself is all that should matter.
And I think that is a form of true happiness. You know, true success if you can be that for yourself.
To be credible to yourself, to know, like, because when you establish any semblance of mastery in a fundamental of anything, so if you're playing the piano, if you're cooking, or if you're cutting hair, as soon as you establish a level of mastery in that area, you establish an underlying sense of competence to yourself, credibility to yourself, like, you know, and that's when you start to find your authenticity. So I would always say, go back to basics with your craft, perfect the basics, and that will give you a definite spark of confidence in one area. And that's when you'll start to build your authenticity and you'll start to discover what type of things you like. Because you've really been through the vigors and commitment and the discipline of learning something inside and out.
Totally. And I think I remember you saying once, you know, it comes to consistency as well, isn't it? You know, consistency in showing up every day. Like you'll go in and do a cutting course and somebody like, oh, I can't do that. How can I, you know, want to be able to do it the same as you. But for you, like, how many times have you done that haircut? How many times you still do that haircut? You know, it's about, you know, this is how you get to sort of, you know, the top 5% of your, you know, whatever your skill may be in whatever business. And it's that consistency that does it. And I think this is where, you know, it's not as easy as it looks, you know. So where we say about, you know, mastering your craft or, you know, the development of selves, it comes with that consistency and mindset. And this is where it is a true thing.
Final. No, sometimes there's no huge moment where there's a big cup final. I think what I would say is, like, when you think, for me, there's lots of tiny moments where I've got up and cut a mannequin head when I didn't want to. And I felt, well, that's the difference between me and the me, like the me of me now. You got to sacrifice what you are now for what you want later, I'd say. So that you have to sometimes sacrifice the comfort. And like, oh, you know, I'd love to sit down, I'd love to watch TV, but that's not going to take me anywhere. And I would say to any trainee or anyone that I'm working with, when they say, I don't really want to work on stage, I'm nervous to, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Massively. You know? Yeah. And I think with anything, I think once you truly understand that, you know, that uncomfortableness and feeling nervous is not a real thing. You know, it's actually excitement. It's actually on the other side of that. You know, once you've achieved that, you're going to see massive growth. So, you know, I think that's a really, really good way to put it. So for me, your online education, I've been a subscriber for many years now.
Unbelievable.
And, you know, you jumped on that like before COVID. You know, how long had you had that?
We had it for 2 years before COVID hit. So we had the opportunity to work out a lot of the kinks, a lot of the things. And we started it, Tara, because it was how I retrained, you see. So I'd used online education as a really efficient resource. Now, I would straight away advocate that it never takes the place for a hands-on session, but it is so efficient. It's very affordable, and you can watch it in between clients. I mean, I was watching some this morning before I came to your amazing academy, just to get me in the right state for delivering education. And what I wanted to achieve was a site that was accessible to the hairdresser I was, someone that wanted to ensure that they knew inside and out, in depth. That wasn't trend orientated and wasn't subjective. We avoided the subjectivity of a haircut and retained the pragmatism so that people, you could explain what you were doing in depth. Instead of making it loose and we're going to make the haircut shattered and ethereal, we give a real in-depth terminology to the how, the why, and the what if, really. And I think like the product online education for me was something I was enthusiastic about. So again, before I looked at learning about it, I was enthusiastic about it.
Totally.
And I think confidence will come from, you know, passion for the subject, but also knowledge in it. So I didn't have any knowledge in it. So you had to hire professionals, people to film, people to edit. And it was a slow process for me to develop as any base skill set in filming and editing. But again, consistency, Tara, you know, like I was just saying before we came on camera, I would film the same thing on every setting of the camera or take a picture on every setting of the camera to familiarize myself with the outcome of each setting. And I think people sometimes won't give the time to a new skill.
No, you know, they're like, oh my God, I can't do it. I'm not doing it again.
They're expecting immediate success. And, you know, if looking at a guitar won't make you play it like Jimi Hendrix, it's probably going to be 100 hours of practice before you'd be anywhere decent. So no, I mean, online for me, I use it all the time. I really enjoy watching people cut hair. And I get a lot out of the experience of watching it. So, you know, it made sense that we would have it. But yes, to be 2 years ahead of COVID with it.
Because it felt as soon as COVID hit, everybody became educators. Everybody tried to get online, you know, and it was oh my God,
it was saturated. I thought, oh my God, I was so grateful because we'd worked out the kinks. We had a library of 100 tutorials ready to go. And then suddenly I had a global captive audience.
I know,
So
you had a global audience before, though, didn't you?
Yeah, through social media, but that didn't make them customers. That just made people who will glance at your work for 7 seconds.
Okay.
And then suddenly we had, like I say, at first we had like 40 countries, and then all of a sudden you've got 100, and you're like amazed by it. The book we wrote, the BB Bible, was really, again, it was supposed to be...
I also have that, by the way.
You're amazing, honestly. I don't know what to say. You spent so much money with me. But I wanted a book that I would have used, a book that I could have done with. It would have really helped me to deepen my understanding of haircutting, to have had something like that.
Yeah.
So we just rewrote that book. When you see something material in your hands, you instantly judge it, I think. And when I saw my own book, I didn't like it. I know it's a hard thing to admit.
That's not like you, Ben, being very criticising yourself.
And it's my biggest weakness. Is I'm so humble. But I saw it and I thought, I don't like the cover. I don't like the way it looks.
But this is how we learn as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's a great thing. But I had 1,200 copies, so we still had to sell them. We sold out in a fairly short period.
Really?
I never reprinted them, but then I rewrote the book. We had it, really edited. Really spent hiring some professionals on it, and that's going to come out in March next year.
Amazing.
So it's currently 2023 October.
Yeah.
So March 24 that'll be available. So
yeah,
look at me plugging it shamelessly.
No, well, this is
no,
but to be honest, Ben, this is why I wanted to interview on here. Obviously for my podcast, I want to interview people with a story behind business and how they've got to, the top 5% of wherever that may be, whether it's hair industry, whether it's, any type of industry.
Yeah.
For me, and this is what I was saying before, like opening this podcast selfishly is like, you learn so much from interviewing other people within their industries.
Oh, massively, yeah.
And for you, Ben, like, I think how, it's so difficult as a business owner and as a leader anyway, the person that owns the company but has to make all the decisions, how do you, obviously for me, I've got the team around and I've got people watching me. So
you've got a lot of sounding boards.
So I've got to, that's what keeps me going. But for
that is a challenge.
Yeah. For you, it's like you're alone, how do you keep it moving, the momentum, and like, who do you talk to about things?
Oh my God, I suddenly feel really lonely. I've just suddenly realised I've got no one. I do have a great network of friends, which I consider you to be at the top of that. So of course, I reach out to you occasionally and things.
The original voice note podcast is you're the one that introduced that to me.
Because a voice note is usually 30 seconds.
Yeah,
mine
not from
are like
Ben.
4 or 5 minutes. I feel that the first thing I would do is, I'm very fortunate that I have an amazing wife. And she's got a really high level of intelligence, emotionally and socially.
Well, that makes
things that I don't
difference.
have. And she's very strict financially, which is great. So quite often she's very firm about it. She'll be really honest. And I think that is something I always try to have in any relationship I have, is honesty and integrity. Because then it's worth having.
Totally agree with you there. There's got to be, a friend. You've got to have that, haven't you? Your marriage, I think, and then also friendship. So I agree.
So I rely a lot on my friends.
Yeah.
I have an idea, and if I would buy it, then I start to pursue it.
Amazing.
So when I, developed, like, we're going to talk, I suppose, later, just about how the next step for me is my Core 12 program.
Yes.
Well, see, that came about by something that I would wish was out there. So you manifest things that aren't yet there. So you think, well, I would love a 12-week program where I could be mentored for 12 weeks.
Yes.
And there wasn't anything there. So you create your own.
Yeah. And I think this is it, it's always sort of thinking outside the box, isn't it? And I think Core 12 is going to be very, very successful. I mean, I believe you've had some good movement with that already in the States and everything, which is absolutely huge, to be able to start getting into these countries and getting into, colleges and stuff like that is like such a big move.
You don't have to follow the usual paths. I think that's the first thing I felt was there was a very clear path for education, and it always seemed to go to a product brand.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't, I'm very proud to work with Alpha Path as an ambassador, but obviously that all that I built wasn't in mind to become part of their family.
Yeah.
What I built was to strengthen the life I have outside of work. Everything I do is for a better social life, I suppose, Tara, so better holidays, better things for family and what have you, but also a sense of self-respect that what I do contributes. Like what I do, yes, I get paid for what I do, Tara, but I contribute something valuable into my industry. You see, I add value to the industry for the people I teach. That's the goal.
Definitely.
Hopefully that's what I do.
Yeah. No, and I think that's what really sets people apart. You know, if it becomes a financial thing, like I was talking about, you know, this place
it's
here for me,
then.
it's not. This isn't financial for me. You know, it's not about bringing in loads and loads of money. Like for me, I would have, you know, carried on in Abu Dhabi and just, you know, not invested into stuff. But this was a bigger thing for me. You know, it's investing into education and everything like that. And it's the same for you, you know. You can sort of tell the difference between if it becomes about money and taking money off of people or if it's, you know, it's truly you get that joy of giving something back to people and seeing them learn and grow from it.
I mean, it leaves me quite cold if I'm just doing it financially. I have to have an emotional,
like a one night stand.
Yeah. Oh my God, what's that like? I've been married. I'm like, I mean, that would leave me very, very cold. I'd feel very ashamed, awful. But you know, like with everything, to reiterate, everything that you do, if as an entrepreneur, as anything else, it matters to us first. It gets us motivated to put all that work in.
Yeah.
All that work we have to do to achieve something. Like Core 12 started with a blank laptop screen, and you write what you would want. Like, what do I think? And don't, like I talked a minute ago about don't tread the path everyone else has tread. You know, so I looked at, you know, where is there a market for this? And it was the colleges in the US, because they're mostly privately funded. In the UK, it'd be really difficult, you know. So I would want to help them have a product that would differentiate themselves from other colleges. So they would have a 12-week like finishing school with me, where I'm able to really help those learners develop a clear and deep understanding about what it is to cut hair, preparing them for the commercial market, not just all classic work, but things that they're going to need. Like there are 12 core things we have to be able to complete to be a hair cutter. A convex layer, a concave layer, internal graduation, external, a line. You know, these are things that we should have in our repertoire. And quite often there are gaps, and my goal is I'm going to fill those gaps, and I'm going to take away the guesswork, and that's what Core 12 guarantees. And yes, I'm really, really grateful that we have made moves with it. And I really value it. I think it's a great product. So I'm going to say that. Because it's mine.
No, but I mean, with anything that you do, and I think, you know, that, you know, the follow up on stuff, you know, follow up on the courses and that mentorship. I think that's what is really missing from a lot of, you know, education, isn't it? You know, that sort of
It's not enough anymore just to have a tutorial.
No.
Everything evolves and the demand evolves. So what was a wow factor? Like, oh my God, you've got tutorials online, is no longer a wow factor. You've got to have something else now. They want more contact with you. Now you have private broadcast channels where you can set those up. They want more from you. And they can have more. That's fine. I want more too. You know, and I'm a fan of people, and I love to contact them. So I think there is a responsibility with what I do. And that you need to uphold, you know, the effort that goes in from people to contact you. You need to message them back. You need to have a certain standard that we hold ourselves to deliver a positive experience of talking to us, a positive experience of meeting us.
And it gives them the consistency, you know, and the accountability as well, you know, because that's what they need to keep, you know, to keep bettering themselves as well. And one thing, you know, going into the States is huge, because a lot of Brits tend to stay away because it's so difficult to get into there, isn't there? You know, even in being a hairdresser within the States, you know, you've got to change. I've been going for 5
years. 5 years of chipping away at it, where you would probably only break even from going. But I really like working with people in America. The love for education.
They're always so, you know, in terms of, you know, in like when you come to the UK and everything, everybody's a little bit more played it down, isn't it? But with Americans, they're so happy to see you. They're so overjoyed, aren't they? With the, you know, they love the accent as well. That helps.
Absolutely. So I find myself like over pronouncing things accidentally when I'm in America. Hello there, you know, but ultimately, I've managed to teach in a few places now, and I've worked a lot with a company called Hairbrained.
Amazing. Well, they're huge.
And I've been so grateful to work with Gerard from there, and they've helped me a lot. Yeah. But obviously, I had to water that relationship.
Yeah.
You have to develop that because they've got access to whoever they want to. So I need to be really aware of that and think that, I want to work really, really hard to show. You work hard to work hard.
Definitely.
I said the other day, I've worked hard to work this hard.
Definitely.
And
I love
now it's the first time that the International Beauty Show, they're actually having me out to New York in March.
Wow.
And that's the biggest, I've been really working towards that, where they hire you to teach a private class. So, a huge amount has been look on some levels, but I had to be in the right place at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of things you do. And this is one thing I would say is that you'll feel like you're taking steps back. I mean, maybe you've been the same. I know I've been the same.
Massively.
But you keep pushing against the tide.
Yeah.
Definitely. Keep pushing against the tide. And eventually you do get another step out of the sand, closer towards what you want.
I think, like you say, it's having that picture ahead of you, isn't it? That picture, a very, very clear picture of what it looks like. And it's those small steps every day that takes you, closer to it.
One step at a time.
One step, definitely.
One step at a time.
So we're going to start wrapping up now, but I've got one more question for you, Ben, before you leave today. Great to have you back in the UAE, and obviously you're coming back in January as well. So we're super excited for that. But what's next for you? What's next over the, next 6 months into next year? What are your plans? Have you got anything exciting?
We're creating a certified program.
Yeah.
I keep saying all the time. We wanted to create something where people attain a certification.
Amazing.
Okay. So when they complete Core 12, they then go into the Evolve class. Evolve class is more advanced. So we work with visual, practical disconnection, things that I post on my social media, things that I would do, on a model to show off, to flex. So it's, once they've completed all these haircuts, they'll go through an assessment with me, and then they become Ben Brown certified.
Wow, that's
They get
amazing.
their own kit. They'll get a gold badge, an enamel pin badge that says certified.
Yeah.
And they attain something from the experience of being with me, that I want to try to create something that they'd put in their bio.
Definitely.
You see people have that where I'm such and such. I want to be synonymous with the quality side of education.
Amazing.
Not the entertainment side, but the quality side. So Core 12 has sort of helped me then to look beyond Core 12 into Evolve and into the certified program.
So what I love about you, Ben, is you are a true master of creating your own opportunities there. It's again of like, okay, we make the rules,
Yeah.
So many colleges, so many salons, they have their own, they have their own education, don't they, here? But, why can you not have your own certification? So I love that as always.
Yeah.
Breaking the mold as always. Anyway, thank you so much for coming.
It's been a pleasure, Tara.
And agreeing to talk to me. And I love interviewing you. And definitely, you stand out for me always because of the levels that you take everything to. So
I
always
I feel
an honour.
the same way about you, Tara. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
No, thanks, Ben.